But tragedy in Greek mythology is rarely a matter of malice. Often, it is a matter of accident. It is the intrusion of the absolute power of the gods into the fragile world of mortals. One afternoon, the heat was intense. The air shimmered over the waters of Lake Tritonis. The two friends decided to spar. It was a friendly contest, a way to pass the time, to test a new move, a new feint. They took up their spears. They raised their shields. They circled each other. The dust rose around their feet. Athena lunged. Pallas parried. Pallas struck. Athena dodged. It was a beautiful, rhythmic display of skill. They were evenly matched. The mortal girl's speed was defying the goddess's strength. High above, on the peaks of Olympus, Zeus was watching. The king of the gods looked down at the sparring match. He saw his daughter, his pride, engaging in combat. And then, he saw something that worried him. Perhaps he saw Pallas preparing a strike that was too true, too dangerous. Perhaps he simply wanted to test his daughter's reflexes. Or perhaps, as is often the case with Zeus, he meddled simply because he could. As Pallas wound up for a powerful strike, intended to tap Athena's shield, Zeus intervened. He did not shout. He did not throw a thunderbolt. He simply lowered a defense between them. He lowered the Aegis. We will speak of the Aegis in great detail later, for it is central to this chapter. But for now, imagine it as a device of pure cosmic terror, a shield or a skin that radiates the raw, unfiltered power of the storm god. Pallas, the river maiden, was in mid-strike. Suddenly, directly in her field of vision, the Aegis appeared. It flashed with a blinding, terrifying light. It was the face of fear itself. Pallas froze. Her mortal heart skipped a beat. She flinched, her eyes widening in terror, her guard dropping instinctively to cover her face from the divine glare. She was defenseless. Athena, however, was already in motion. She had launched a thrust, a playful, disciplined blow meant to land on Pallas's shield. It was a move they had practiced 1,000 times. But Pallas's shield was not there. Pallas had flinched. The spear of the goddess did not stop. It was a moment that lasted an eternity. The bronze tip of Athena's spear found the gap in the defenses. It pierced the chest of her dearest friend. The sound of the impact was not the clatter of wood on shield. It was the sickening thud of metal on flesh. Pallas gasped. She fell backward into the dust of the training ground. The light went out of her eyes before she even hit the ground. Zeus lifted the Aegis. The glare vanished. Athena stood there, her arm still extended, her spear dripping with red blood. The silence that followed was heavier than the silence of her birth. This was the silence of the tomb. She dropped the spear. She fell to her knees beside her friend. But it was too late. Pallas was dead. The playmate, the mirror, the only one who understood the warrior's heart of the goddess, was gone. And she had died by Athena's own hand. The grief of Athena was boundless. It was a cold, deep grief that settled into the very marrow of her bones. She did not wail and tear her hair like a mortal woman. Her mourning was an act of transformation. She made a vow. She swore that Pallas would never be forgotten. She swore that as long as Athena lived, which was forever, the name of Pallas would live too. She took the name of her dead friend. From that day forward, she was not just Athena. She was Pallas Athena. Every time a prayer was whispered, every time a temple was dedicated, the name of the victim would be spoken alongside the name of the goddess. It was an act of eternal memorialization. She wrapped her identity around the memory of her friend. But the name was not enough. Athena needed a physical representation of what she had lost. Apollodorus tells us that in her grief, she took a piece of sacred wood. With her own hands, the hands that would later teach humanity how to build ships and weave tapestries, she began to carve. She carved a statue in the exact likeness of Pallas. She captured the stance, the raised spear, the fierce look in the eyes. This statue was the Palladium. It was not a large marble masterpiece like the later statues of Phidias. It was likely a zoanon, a rigid, archaic wooden idol, but it was infused with the sorrow and power of the goddess. It became one of the most sacred artifacts in the entire mythological world. Zeus, perhaps feeling a pang of guilt for his role in the tragedy, threw the Palladium down from Olympus. It landed in the mortal world, specifically in the region of Troy, or the land that would become Troy. The Trojans found it. They recognized its divinity. They built a temple for it. And a prophecy arose. As long as the Palladium remained within the walls of Troy, the city would never fall. It was the luck of Troy. The safety of an entire civilization rested on the wooden shoulders of the dead friend of Athena. We will revisit this statue in a later chapter, for its theft by Odysseus is the key to the end of the Trojan War. But there is another layer to this tragedy, a layer that involves the armor Athena wears. We have spoken of the death. Now we must speak of the Aegis. In the iconography of Athena, she is almost always depicted wearing a strange garment over her chest. It is not exactly a breastplate, nor is it a simple cloak. It is a skin. It is fringed with snakes, and in the center of it is the head of a gorgon. This is the Aegis. The origins of the Aegis are murky, buried in the deepest strata of pre-Homeric myth. The word Aegis itself is linked to the Greek word Aegis, meaning goatskin. There is a version of the myth, a darker, more violent version found in the Gigantomachy traditions, that suggests a different origin for the name Pallas. In this version, Pallas was not a maiden, but a giant, a monstrous, winged giant who attempted to rape or assault Athena during the war between gods and giants. In this tale, Athena kills him, strips the skin from his body while it is still warm, and wears it as a trophy and a form of armor. She becomes Pallas Athena because she is the flayer of Pallas. This is the savage, martial aspect of the goddess, but it conflicts with the tender tragedy of the Libyan lake. Most classical traditions, however, link the Aegis to the goat Amalthea. Amalthea was the divine she-goat who nursed the infant Zeus in the caves of Crete when he was hiding from his father Cronus. She fed the king of gods with her milk. When she died, Zeus took her skin, a skin that could turn away any weapon, and fashioned it into a shield or a protective garment. This is the Aegis that Zeus holds, but he rarely keeps it. He gives it to Athena. Why? Because Athena is the only one he trusts with the ultimate weapon of fear. The Aegis is not just armor. It is a psychological weapon. Homer tells us in the Iliad that the Aegis is tasseled and terrible to behold. When it is shaken, it emits a sound like 1,000 roaring dragons. It produces panic, Phobos, and terror, Deimos. When Athena enters the battlefield and shakes the Aegis, entire armies dissolve into madness. Men lose the will to fight. Their knees turn to water. It is the embodiment of the storm terror, the static charge that makes the hair stand up on your neck before the lightning strikes. And later, a new horror was added to it, the Gorgonean. After the hero Perseus slew Medusa, a quest guided by Athena, which we will explore in the Age of Heroes, he gave the severed head to the goddess. The head of Medusa, with her writhing snake hair and her petrifying gaze, retained its power even after death. Athena did not bury it. She did not hide it. She mounted the severed head of Medusa right in the center of the Aegis. Think of the symbolism here. Athena, the goddess of cool logic, the goddess of civilized war, wears upon her breast the ultimate symbol of chaos and irrational nightmare. She wears the monster. This is the paradox of Athena's power. To protect civilization, the city, she must harness the powers of terror. She binds the chaos to her chest. She uses the Gorgon to ward off evil. It is an apotropaic symbol, a face so ugly and terrifying that it scares away bad luck and enemies. So now, let us look at the goddess as she stands at the end of her childhood. She is no longer the simple, spear-shaking newborn. She is complex. She carries the name of her dead friend, Pallas, as a reminder of the cost of violence. She carries the wooden statue, Palladium, in her heart as a promise of protection. And she wears the skin of the divine goat, pinned with the head of a monster, Aegis, as a warning to anyone who would challenge her. She has learned that war is not a game. She has learned that even the gods are subject to fate. But her education is not complete. She has mastered the spear. She has mastered the shield. Now, she must master the art of peace. She must master the art of building. She needs a home. She needs a people. The wild shores of Libya are behind her. The high peaks of Olympus are her throne, but they are not her domain. She looks down at the peninsula of Greece. She sees a rocky outcrop in the region of Attica, a small, dusty town inhabited by people who are looking for a patron. But she is not the only one looking. Her uncle, Poseidon, the earth shaker, the lord of the sea, also has his eye on this city. A conflict is brewing, not a war of spears, but a contest of gifts, a contest that will define the history of Western civilization. Who will win the hearts of the people? The god of the sea, who offers power, or the goddess of wisdom, who offers something else? The olive tree is waiting to bloom. The salt spring is waiting to burst forth, and the strange, serpent-legged secrets of the earth are waiting to be born. We are leaving the desert. We are going to Athens. But before it can become Athens, it must be won. The tragedy of Pallas taught her how to mourn. The contest for the city will teach her how to rule. We climb the Acropolis, witness the clash of the trident and the spear, and uncover the scandalous earth-born secret that Athena tried to hide in a basket. The storm has forged the warrior. Now the earth will test the mother. The fire has settled into a steady, glowing warmth. The sharp crackle of the burning logs has given way to a low, rhythmic hum. It is the sound of stability. And stability is exactly what the young goddess is seeking now. We have seen Athena spring from the head of Zeus in a flash of violence. We have seen her weep over the body of her friend Pallas on the dusty shores of Libya. She has known pain, and she has known power, but she has not yet known belonging. She is a goddess without a home. Olympus is her father's palace, but it is not her own domain. She needs a seat of power. She needs a people to protect, a civilization to mold in her image. And so, her gaze turns away from the wild, unmapped edges of the world and settles on a rocky outcrop in the heart of Greece. In the region of Attica, jutting out into the Aegean Sea, there is a peninsula, and on that peninsula, rising sharply from the plain, is a limestone plateau, the Acropolis. In these ancient days, before the marble columns of the Parthenon rose to kiss the sky, it was a rugged fortress, a settlement of Mycenaean walls and wooden palaces. The people who lived there were ruled by a king named Cecrops, and Cecrops himself was a figure of the earth. The myths tell us he was Diffes, two-natured. From the waist up, he was a man. From the waist down, he was a serpent. He was a child of the soil, born directly from the ground, representing the ancient, autochthonous claim of the people to their land. The city was prosperous, but it had no name. It had no divine patron. And in the world of myth, a city without a god is like a ship without a rudder, vulnerable to the storms of fate. Athena was not the only one who saw the potential of this place. The Earth Shaker, the Lord of the Deep, the brother of Zeus, Poseidon, also coveted the city. He saw its proximity to the sea. He saw the potential for a great naval empire. He wanted the smoke of its sacrifices to rise for him. And so a challenge was issued, a contest. The two deities would meet on the summit of the Acropolis. Each would present a gift to the city. The king, Cecrops, and in some versions the citizens themselves, would judge which gift was superior. The winner would take the city forever. Imagine the day of the contest. The sun is blazing over the limestone rock. The citizens of the unnamed city gather, watching in awe and terror. On one side stands Poseidon. He is massive, bearded, holding the trident that can shatter continents. He smells of brine and deep sea pressure. On the other side stands Athena. She is cool, composed, wearing the terrifying Aegis, her gray eyes scanning the horizon. Poseidon goes first. He wants to demonstrate power. He wants to show them that he controls the trade, the waves, and the military might of the ocean. He steps forward. He raises his trident. With a roar like a crashing wave, he strikes the hard rock of the Acropolis. Crack! The earth splits open. From the fissure, water gushes forth. It is a miracle, a spring of water flowing on a dry, high rock. The people rush forward to taste it, thinking they have been given an endless supply of fresh water to drink. But they spit it out. It is salt water. Poseidon has created the Erichthonius Sea, a salt spring. It is impressive, yes. It represents the dominance of the ocean. It promises that if they choose him, they will be masters of the sea. They will have a powerful navy. They will be conquerors. But you cannot drink salt water. You cannot water crops with it. It is a gift of raw power, but it lacks utility for the common life. Then it is Athena's turn. She does not strike the earth with violence. She does not summon an earthquake. She steps forward quietly. She kneels. She touches the fertile soil that has gathered in the cracks of the limestone. She plants a seed, or perhaps she strikes the ground gently with her spear, not to break it, but to wake it. Before the eyes of the gathered crowd, a shoot appears. It grows rapidly, twisting and turning, its bark gray and gnarled, its leaves a silvery green that flashes in the sunlight. It is the olive tree, the very first olive tree in existence, the Moria. The people look at it. They look at the fruit hanging from its branches. Cecrops, the serpent king, slithers forward to inspect it. He sees the value instantly. The olive is not just food, it is oil. Oil for lamps to light the darkness. Oil for cooking. Oil for cleaning the body after exercise. Oil for lubricating tools. The wood is hard and durable. The leaves provide shade. The tree can live for hundreds, even thousands of years, surviving drought and poor soil. It is the ultimate symbol of peace, prosperity, and domestic economy. Poseidon offered them the power of war and the sea. Athena offered them the power of civilization and sustenance. The verdict was delivered. In the version told by Varro, it is said that all the men voted for Poseidon and all the women voted for Athena, and since there was one more woman, Athena won. But in the older, more foundational myths, it is Cecrops himself who judges. He points to the tree. The olive, the king declares, is the greater gift. The city is hers. It is named Athens, Athenae. Poseidon was furious. The god of the sea does not lose gracefully. He raged against the verdict. He flooded the Thriasian plain, turning fields into marshes, drowning the land in his anger. But eventually, the order was restored. He was given a cult in the city, as Poseidon Erechthonius, but the patron, the Polius, protector of the city, was Athena. She had her home. She had won it not by brute force, but by wisdom, by understanding what humanity truly needs to survive. But a city needs more than just a name. It needs a future, and the future of Athens is tied to one of the strangest, most uncomfortable, and most secretive stories in all of mythology. We must now turn our attention to a darker corner of the Acropolis. We must speak of how a virgin goddess became a mother, without ever breaking her vow. This is the story of Erichthonius. It begins with a desire for armor. Athena, though she had won the city with peace, was still a warrior. She needed weapons, and so she went to the forge of the divine smith, Hephaestus. Hephaestus, the lame god, the worker of fire and bronze. He was the one who had split Zeus's head open to allow Athena to be born. In some traditions, he had harbored a secret fascination with her since that moment. In others, he had just been rejected by his wife, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, who had humiliated him by sleeping with Ares. Hephaestus was lonely. He was frustrated. And when Athena walked into his forge, beautiful, strong, intellectual, the perfect counterpart to his own craftsmanship, his control snapped. The myth, as recounted by Apollodorus, is stark. Athena asked for weapons. Hephaestus said he would make them, but he would take payment in love. Athena, the eternal virgin, refused. She did not understand, or perhaps she simply did not care for, the passions of the flesh. She turned to leave. Hephaestus chased her. Imagine the horror of this scene. The lame god, hobbling but powerful, his hands stained with soot and oil, pursuing the goddess of wisdom across the forge, and perhaps out onto the slopes of the Acropolis. Athena was faster, she was stronger, but he managed to catch her just for a moment. He tried to embrace her. Athena fought him off. She did not strike him down. He was her brother, after all, but she pushed him away with disgust. In the struggle, Hephaestus could not contain himself. His seed, the divine fluid of generation, spilled. But it did not touch Athena's womb. It fell upon her thigh. Athena, repulsed, took a tuft of wool, Aryan, perhaps from the spindle she carried, or a piece of cloth nearby. She wiped the seed from her leg and threw the wool onto the ground. She threw it onto Gaia, the earth. And here, biology and magic collide. The seed of the fire god, wiped by the virgin goddess, landed on the fertile soil of the Earth Mother. Gaia, who had birthed the Titans and the giants, felt the seed. She was impregnated, but she was not happy about it. She cried out that she would not raise this child. It was not hers by choice. It was the product of a violent misunderstanding, cast aside by the sky gods. But the earth is fertile. It cannot help but grow what is planted in it. Time passed, and from the soil of the Acropolis, a child was born. Athena heard the cry. She returned to the spot where she had thrown the wool. She looked down at the infant lying in the dirt. This was Erichthonius. His name is a puzzle of his origins. Eris means strife or wool, depending on the etymological root one favors in the myth, and chthon means earth, the earth born of the wool. He was not a normal child. In some versions, he was a baby with serpents for legs. In others, he was a human child guarded by two massive snakes. He was a monster to some, but to Athena, he was a responsibility. She had rejected the act of conception, but she accepted the result. She lifted the child from the earth. She decided, in the secret chambers of her heart, to raise him. But she would not do it openly on Olympus. The other gods would mock her. They would question her virginity. They would laugh at this snake-legged bastard of a failed assault. She needed to hide him until he was strong enough to rule. So, the goddess of wisdom devised a plan that involved a box, a secret, and a test of trust. She took a woven chest, a basket made of wicker or reeds. She placed the infant Erichthonius inside. She placed the two golden serpents beside him to guard him. She closed the lid. Athena manifests. She is not terrifying this time. She is calm, practical, like a master craftsman inspecting a project. Why does she help Perseus? Perhaps because Medusa is her old enemy, the monster she herself cursed, in Ovid's later telling, or simply a creature of chaos that needs to be removed. Or perhaps she sees in Perseus the raw material of a true hero. She does not kill the monster for him. That is not the way of the mentor. If she killed Medusa, Perseus would learn nothing. He would remain a boy. Instead, she gives him a tool, a shield. But not just any shield. A shield of polished bronze, burnished until it shines like a mirror. And she gives him the instruction, the logos. Do not look at her, Athena tells him. Look at the reflection. The monster cannot hurt you if you look at the image, not the reality. This is profound wisdom. It is the beginning of abstraction. It teaches that we can conquer horror by analyzing it, by viewing it indirectly through the lens of the mind, the shield, rather than being paralyzed by the direct confrontation with fear. She guides him to the Graeae, the Grey Sisters who share one eye, to force them to reveal the location of the nymphs who hold the weapons he needs. She walks with him into the dark cavern of the Gorgons. Imagine that moment. Perseus is terrified. He hears the hissing of the snakes. He smells the rot. He wants to run, but he feels a presence beside him, a steady hand on his shoulder. Apollodorus tells us that Athena guided his hand. Perseus looks into the bronze mirror. He sees the reflection of Medusa sleeping. He raises the sickle given by Hermes. But it is Athena who calculates the angle. It is Athena who ensures the strike is true. The head is severed. Perseus puts it in the bag. Kibesis. He escapes. He has done the impossible, but he could not have done it alone. Athena provided the strategy, the mirror, and the guidance. She turned a suicide mission into a surgical operation. But Perseus was a slayer. Our next hero is a tamer. Bellerophon. Bellerophon was a prince of Corinth, exiled and burdened with a blood guilt. He yearned for something that seemed beyond the reach of man. He wanted to ride the winged horse, Pegasus. Pegasus, ironically, was born from the blood of Medusa when Perseus cut off her head. The winged horse was wild, untamed, soaring through the clouds, untouchable. Bellerophon tried to catch him with lassos, with nets, with strength. He failed every time. Desperate, he went to the temple of Athena. He slept there, practicing the ancient ritual of incubation, sleeping in a holy place to receive a dream. In the silence of the night, Athena came to him. She held something in her hand. It was made of gold. It clinked softly. "Are you sleeping, prince?" she asked in the dream. "Wake up. Take this charm for the horse. Show it to your father, Poseidon, the tamer of horses, and sacrifice a white bull." Bellerophon woke up, and there, lying on the stone floor beside him, was the object from the dream. It was the golden bridle. This was the invention of the bit, the piece of metal that goes into the horse's mouth to control it. Before this, men rode horses by clinging to their manes or using rough ropes. Athena, the goddess of invention, Athena Hippia in this context, created the technology of control. She taught Bellerophon that you do not conquer nature, the horse, by beating it. You conquer it by guiding it, by using a gentle, precise pressure. Bellerophon went to the meadow. Pegasus saw the gold. The wild horse, who had fled from every net, bowed his head to the bridle. The Logos of Athena tamed the wild energy of the monster-born horse. Bellerophon rode him. They killed the chimera together. But Bellerophon's story ends in tragedy, because he forgot the source of his power. He thought the victory was his own. He tried to fly to Olympus. Zeus struck him down. Athena did not save him then. She helps those who strive, but she abandons those who succumb to hubris, arrogance. Now, let us turn to the sea, to the greatest voyage of the mythic age, Jason and the Argonauts. Jason was a man with a missing sandal and a stolen throne. To get it back, he needed the golden fleece. To get the fleece, he needed to cross the unfriendly sea to Colchis. He needed a ship, but not a fishing boat. He needed a vessel capable of holding 50 of the greatest heroes, capable of weathering the clashing rocks. Who builds such a ship? Apollodorus tells us clearly. Argus built the ship under the direction of Athena. The poet Apollonius of Rhodes goes further. He says Athena herself measured the beams with a ruler. She taught the craftsmen how to bend the wood without breaking it. She was the naval architect, and she gave the ship a soul. She went to the sacred grove of Dodona, where the oaks of Zeus whispered prophecies. She cut a bough from the talking oak. She fitted it into the prow of the Argo. The ship could speak. It could warn the heroes of danger. It was the first smart vehicle in history. When the Argo had to pass through the Symplegades, the clashing rocks that crushed anything that tried to pass between them, it was Athena who watched from the cliff above. The heroes released a dove to test the timing. The dove made it through, losing only a tail feather. The rocks opened. "Row!" Jason shouted. But the current was against them. The rocks began to close. They were going to be crushed. Athena could not stand by. The Bibliotheca says she held the rocks apart with one hand and pushed the ship through with the other. The Argo shot forward like an arrow. The rocks clashed behind them, shearing off the stern ornament. But the heroes were safe. Athena, the engineer. Athena, the pilot. But of all the heroes, of all the demigods and kings, there is one name that is inextricably linked to hers. One man who tested her patience, her strength, and her loyalty more than any other. Herakles. The bond between Athena and Herakles is the emotional core of the heroic age. He is her half-brother, the son of Zeus. But he is everything she is not. He is emotional, hairy, brutish, prone to fits of madness, constantly sweating, constantly suffering. And yet, she loves him. She sees in him the ultimate struggle of the human condition, the fight to overcome one's own nature. She was there from the beginning, when Hera sent madness upon Herakles, causing him to kill his own children. He almost went further. He was about to kill his mortal father, Amphitryon. He raised his bow. Athena appeared, but not gently. She threw a rock, a massive stone that struck him in the chest, knocking him into a coma. She saved him from the sin of patricide by knocking him unconscious. Sometimes the mentor must be harsh. Then came the 12 labors. Look at the metopes of the temple of Zeus at Olympia. They are stone carvings depicting the labors. In almost every one, Athena is there. When he had to kill the Nemean lion, its skin was impervious to iron and bronze. Herakles broke his sword on it. He bent his arrows. He was exhausted. He was just hitting the beast with a club, getting nowhere. Athena whispered to him, "Use the beast's own claws." Wisdom. The solution is often found within the problem itself. Herakles used the lion's own razor-sharp claw to skin it, gaining the invincible cloak that became his trademark. When he faced the Stymphalian birds, it was a nightmare of geometry. The birds were thousands in number. They had bronze beaks and feathers that shot like arrows. They lived in a swamp so dense that Herakles could not walk in it. He would sink. And he could not shoot them all, too many. He sat by the edge of the lake, defeated. He was a man of strength, and this was a problem that strength could not solve. Athena appeared. She did not bring a bigger bow. she brought crotala, castanets, bronze rattles made by Hephaistos. She handed them to Herakles. "Make noise," she suggested. Herakles stood on a hill and shook the rattles. The sound was terrible, piercing, unbearable. The birds, terrified by the sonic assault, rose into the air in a panic. Once they were in the sky, silhouetted against the sun, they were vulnerable. Herakles shot them down one by one. Technology, the rattles, combined with marksmanship solving a problem of numbers. But the greatest test of their partnership was the descent into hell. Cerberus, the final labor. Herakles had to go to the underworld, capture the three-headed hound of Hades, and bring it back. No living man goes to Hades and returns. The path is a maze. The psychological weight of the dead is too much. Homer, in the Iliad, has Herakles complain, "I would never have escaped the steep streams of the Styx if Athena had not saved me." She walked with him. When the shades of the dead ghosts rose to terrify him, he drew his sword. Athena touched his hand. "Put it away," she said. "They are only shadows. You cannot cut empty air." She guided him to Hades. She negotiated with the dark god. And when he dragged the beast up to the light, she was the one clearing the path. But there is one moment that captures their relationship perfectly. The moment with Atlas. Herakles had to get the golden apples of the Hesperides. Atlas, the Titan who held up the sky, offered to get them, if Herakles would hold the heavens for a moment. Herakles agreed. He took the weight of the universe onto his shoulders. Imagine the crushing force, the weight of every star, every planet, the infinite expanse of the cosmos pressing down on the spine of one man. His muscles screamed, his bones creaked. He was going to be crushed. The metope at Olympia shows this scene. Herakles is straining. Atlas is offering the apples. And behind Herakles stands Athena. She has one hand raised. The palm of her hand is placed gently against the bottom of the celestial sphere. She is helping him hold it up. She does not take the weight entirely. It is his labor, not hers. But she makes the burden bearable. She provides the divine support that allows the mortal to endure the impossible. This is the definition of Athena's mentorship. She does not do the work for you. She does not kill your monsters while you sleep. She hands you the shield. She hands you the bridle. She hands you the rattles. And when the weight of the world is about to break your back, she puts her hand underneath the sky and gives you the strength to stand for one more second. She is the externalization of the internal arete. She is the voice in your head that says, think, adapt, endure. Herakles eventually died. His mortal part burned away on the pyre, but his divine part ascended to Olympus. And who was there to greet him? Who drove the chariot that carried him to his apotheosis? It was Athena. She brought her brother home. The age of heroes was a time of individual brilliance. But as the centuries turned, the world became more crowded. The conflicts became larger. It was no longer about one man fighting one monster. It was about armies. It was about nations. It was about a war that would consume the entire known world. The Trojan War is approaching, and in this war, Athena will not just be a mentor. She will be a combatant. She will be a judge, and she will meet the man who matches her mind so perfectly that they seem like two halves of the same soul. We have tamed the horse, we have sailed the sea, we have held the sky. Now, we must go to the walls of Ilium. We must witness the judgment of Paris, the moment vanity destroyed peace, and we must meet the man of many turns, Odysseus. The shield of Perseus is put away. The armor of the goddess is polished for total war. We walk the blood-soaked beaches of Troy, where Athena will grab a hero by the hair, wound the god of war, and begin the long, winding journey home with the wiliest mortal of them all. The hero's journey is a straight line. The strategist's journey is a labyrinth. And Athena loves a labyrinth. The golden age of individual heroism is fading. The time of lonely monsters and solitary quests is coming to an end. The world has grown smaller, and the ambitions of men have grown larger. The Mediterranean is no longer a vast, unknown expanse. It is a chessboard. And on this chessboard, the pieces are moving toward a conflict that will define the boundary between the East and the West. We have seen Athena as the midwife of heroes. We have seen her hold the sky with Herakles and tame the horse with Bellerophon. But now, she must don her helmet for a different kind of war. Not a war against beasts, but a war against men. A war against a city that she herself, in a different timeline, might have loved. We are going to Troy, but the seeds of this war were sown not on a battlefield, but at a wedding. And the rage of Athena begins with a piece of fruit, the judgment of Paris. It is a story often told as a beauty pageant, a trivial vanity project. But we must look deeper. It was a contest of values. Eris, the goddess of discord, threw the golden apple inscribed to the fairest amongst the goddesses. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena all claimed it. Zeus, wise enough to avoid judging his wife and daughters, sent them to the shepherd prince Paris on Mount Ida. Imagine the moment Athena stood before the mortal boy. She did not offer him wealth, Hera's gift. She did not offer him the most beautiful woman in the world, Aphrodite's gift. She removed her helmet. She looked him in the eye with her piercing gray gaze, and she offered him victory. She offered him the mind of a general. She promised that he would never lose a battle. She promised him the glory of strategic dominance, the ability to conquer the known world through intellect and strength. She offered him the very essence of herself. And Paris? Paris looked at the goddess of wisdom, the architect of civilization, and he turned away. He chose the bribe of Aphrodite. He chose Helen. He chose desire over competence. To Athena, this was not just an insult to her beauty. It was a rejection of the rational mind. It was a declaration that the world preferred chaos and lust over order and discipline. In that moment, the fate of Troy was sealed. Athena became the implacable enemy of the city. Her cold, strategic fury would not be satisfied until the towers of Ilium were nothing but ash. The war began. 1,000 ships launched. For 9 years, the Greeks and Trojans ground each other into the dust. And throughout it all, Athena was the invisible general of the Achaeans. But there are moments in the Iliad, Homer's great epic, where she becomes visible, where she steps out of the abstract and into the visceral reality of blood and bronze. Let us focus on her champion, not Achilles, who was a force of nature, but Diomedes. Diomedes was a mortal man, brave but limited. In Book 5 of the Iliad, he is wounded. He prays to Athena. "If ever you loved my father, Tydeus," he gasps, "stand by me now." Athena comes. She does not just heal him. She performs a theological miracle. She breathes into him the strength of his father. And then she does something terrifying. "Look," she says, "I have taken away the mist, Achlis, from your eyes, that you may distinguish between God and man." She alters his perception of reality. For a brief time, Diomedes sees the world as a god sees it. He sees the divinities moving among the mortals like pillars of fire and shadow. But she gives him a strict command. Do not fight with the immortal gods, except for one. If Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus, enters the battle, strike her with the sharp bronze. Athena sends a mortal to wound a goddess. It is a calculated act of spite against the winner of the golden apple. Diomedes obeys. He wounds Aphrodite, sending her fleeing to Olympus. But the bloodlust takes him. He sees Ares, the god of war, slaughtering Greeks. Ares is the antithesis of Athena. He is the blood frenzy, the chaotic slaughter, the mindless scream of battle. Athena hates him. She views him as a maniac, a force without a rudder. She sees Diomedes hesitating before the god of war. She leaps into his chariot. The axle of the chariot groans under the weight of the terrible goddess. She pushes Diomedes' charioteer aside and takes the reins herself. She dons the helm of Hades, which makes her invisible, even to Ares. They charge. Ares thrusts his massive spear at Diomedes, but Athena, unseen, precise, controlling the geometry of the fight, reaches out. She catches the spear of the war god in her hand and pushes it harmlessly over the chariot rail. Then she speaks to Diomedes. "Strike now." Diomedes thrusts. Athena adds her divine weight to the blow. The spear bites into the stomach of Ares, right where the belt clasps. It tears the divine flesh. Ares screams. Homer tells us the sound was like 9,000 or 10,000 men, shouting in battle at once. The god of war, the bully of the battlefield, flees to Olympus, whining to Zeus about the violence of his gray-eyed daughter. Zeus looks at Ares with disgust. "Do not sit beside me and whine," he says. "You are hateful to me. You have your mother's stubborn spirit." But he looks at Athena with pride. She has proven that disciplined warfare, strategy, will always defeat chaotic warfare, bloodlust. She is also there for Achilles. In the very first book of the Iliad, when Achilles is about to draw his sword and kill the king, Agamemnon, an act that would have destroyed the Greek army, Athena appears. She grabs him by his hair. She is invisible to everyone else. Only Achilles sees her. His eyes blaze with recognition. She tells him to put the sword away. "Fight with words," she commands. "Not with steel, not yet." She controls the rage of the greatest warrior. She channels it. And at the very end, when Hector, the prince of Troy, is standing outside the Scaean gates, it is Athena who ensures his death. Hector is fleeing. Achilles is chasing. They are evenly matched. Athena appears to Hector, but she lies. She takes the form of his brother, Deiphobus. "Brother," she says, her voice full of false comfort, "let us stand and fight this man together." Hector stops running. He thinks he is not alone. He thinks he has backup. He turns to face Achilles. He throws his spear. It bounces off Achilles' shield. He turns to his brother for a second spear. "Deiphobus!" he calls. But the space is empty. The phantom brother is gone. Hector realizes the truth in a moment of crushing despair. "Alas," he says, "the gods have summoned me to death. Athena has tricked me." It is a cruel moment, but to Athena it is necessary. The war must end. The city must fall. Compassion is a luxury she cannot afford when the destiny of civilization is at stake. The war ends not with a duel, but with a trick: the wooden horse. Though Odysseus is credited with the idea and Epeius with the construction, the ancient texts say it was built by the divine art of Pallas. It was her inspiration. The horse was an offering to her. The Trojans dragged the instrument of their destruction into their city because they feared her. Troy fell. The temples were burned. The altars were stained with blood. And here, Athena's mood shifts. During the sack of Troy, a Greek warrior named Ajax the Lesser dragged the Trojan princess Cassandra from the temple of Athena. Cassandra was clinging to the statue of the goddess, perhaps the very palladium that had been stolen earlier, or another image. Ajax dragged her away with such violence that the statue toppled. This was a violation of sanctuary. Even though Athena hated Troy, she hated disrespect more. She went to her uncle, Poseidon, the same uncle she had fought for Athens. "I wish to do harm to the Achaeans," she said, her voice cold as the grave. "I wish to make their return journey bitter." Poseidon agreed. The storm was unleashed. The victorious Greek fleet was shattered against the rocks. Heroes drowned. The homecoming was delayed. She then went to the daughters of King Cecrops. Remember Cecrops, the Snake King who had judged the contest. He had 3 daughters: Aglaurus, the Shining One, Herse, the Dew, and Pandrosos, the All-Dewy. They were the princesses of Athens. Athena appeared to them, holding the closed basket. "Take this chest," the goddess commanded. Her voice was low and serious. "Guard it with your lives. Keep it safe in your chambers. But hear me well. You must never open the lid. You must not look at what lies inside. This is my secret and my law." The sisters agreed. They took the basket. They swore an oath. Athena left them. She had business elsewhere, perhaps to bring a massive limestone rock from Pallene to fortify the Acropolis, a rock she would later drop in shock, creating Mount Lycabettus. She trusted them. But curiosity is a poison that works slowly. Night after night, the sisters looked at the basket. What was inside? Was it a treasure? Was it a weapon? Was it a god? Pandrosos, the youngest, remained faithful. She obeyed the goddess. She did not touch the lid. But Aglauros and Hersa, they could not resist. The temptation gnawed at them. The logic of why overpowered the command of no. One night, while Pandrosos slept, the 2 sisters crept to the chest. Their hands trembled. They undid the latch. They lifted the wicker lid just an inch. Then, wide open, they looked inside. The myths vary on what exactly they saw, but the effect was unanimous. They saw the child. They saw the serpents coiled around him. Or perhaps they saw that the child was a serpent from the waist down. It was a sight of such primal, chthonic horror, a violation of the natural order of human form, that their minds shattered. It was not just fear, it was madness, the mania sent by the gods. The sisters screamed. They did not run to their father. They did not run to the temple. Driven by an unseen fury, possessed by the terror of the forbidden sight, they ran to the edge of the Acropolis. The cliff face of the citadel is steep, a sheer drop to the rocks below. Without hesitating, Aglaurus and Herse threw themselves off the precipice. They fell to their deaths, their bodies broken on the stones of the city their father ruled. A crow, who had been watching from the trees, flew to Athena to deliver the news. The goddess was mid-flight, carrying a mountain to bolster her defenses. When she heard that her secret was out, that her trust was broken, and that the sisters were dead, she dropped the mountain in her grief and anger. That mountain, like Abetus, still stands in Athens today, a monument to bad news. Athena rushed back to the Acropolis. She found the basket open, the sisters dead, but the child was alive. Erichthonius, the Earthborn, looked up at her. She did not turn away. She took him. She brought him into her own temple, the holy sanctuary on the rock. She raised him herself. This is a pivotal moment in the character of Athena. She is the virgin, Parthenos, yet she becomes the nursing mother, Kourotrophos. She raises Erichthonius not as a son of her body, but as a son of her mind and her will. Under her tutelage, Erichthonius grew up to be a great king of Athens. He expelled the usurpers. He unified the people. But most importantly, he honored his mother. He established the great festival, the Panathenaia. This was not just a party. It was the heartbeat of Athens. Every 4 years, the entire city would gather to celebrate the birthday of the goddess. They would weave a new robe, a pepelos, for her statue. They would carry it in a grand procession up the steep slopes of the Acropolis, walking past the olive tree she had planted, past the grave of Cecrops, past the place where the sisters had jumped. Erichthonius taught the Athenians to worship Athena not just as a distant Olympian, but as a foster mother who walked among them. He is credited with inventing the chariot, perhaps to hide his serpent feet, or perhaps because Athena, the tamer of horses, taught him the engineering. So, the city was secured. It had a name, Athens. It had a gift, the olive. It had a king, Erichthonius. And it had a goddess who was bound to the land by a secret adoption. Athena was no longer a guest. She was the matriarch. But the world outside of Athens was not peaceful. The cosmos was still volatile. The reign of Zeus was established, but it was not unchallenged. Deep in the Earth Mother Gaia, the same Gaia who had birthed Erichthonius, was angry. She was angry that her earlier children, the Titans, were imprisoned in Tartarus. She was brewing a new war, a war not of gods against gods, but of the earth against the sky. She was birthing the Gigantes, the giants. These were not like the frost giants of the Norse. These were monstrosities, huge, hairy, with serpents for legs, echoing Erichthonius, but wild and uncontrolled. They were immune to the weapons of the gods alone. A prophecy stated that the giants could only be killed if the gods and a mortal hero fought together. Athena, the strategist, heard this prophecy. She knew that the peaceful days of planting olive trees were over. She had to become the Promachos again. she had to rally the defense of Olympus. And she knew exactly which mortal hero they needed. She needed the strongest man who would ever live. She needed Herakles. But before we can speak of the Great War, we must understand how Athena fights. She does not fight like Ares, with bloodlust. She fights with geometry. She fights with physics. The giants are rising. The earth is shaking. And the gray-eyed goddess is putting on her helmet once more. We witness the Gigantomachy. We will see Athena lift an entire island to crush a giant. We will see her flay her enemies alive. And we will see her guide the greatest hero of all time into the fray. The olive branch is laid aside. The spear is lifted. The earth is at war with the sky. The olive tree still stands on the Acropolis, its silver-green leaves rustling in the Aegean breeze. The city of Athens is growing, brick by brick, law by law, under the watchful eye of its virgin mother. It seems, for a moment, that the cosmos has found its equilibrium. The king of the gods sits on his high throne. The goddess of wisdom guides the cities of men. But, in the mythology of the ancient Greeks, peace is never a permanent state. It is merely the pause between breaths. It is the silence before the thunder. Deep beneath the earth, far below the roots of the olive tree, far below the foundations of the temples, a rage is festering. Gaia, the primordial mother, the earth itself, is not at rest. She remembers. She remembers her children, the Titans, who were cast down by Zeus into the pit of Tartarus. She hears their groans echoing through the bedrock. She feels the injustice of the sky ruling over the earth. And so she conceives again. She does not lie with a god this time. She takes the blood of the mutilated sky, Uranos, that fell upon her soil eons ago, and she ferments it with her anger. In the burning fields of Phlegra, a place of volcanic vents and sulphurous fumes, she gives birth to the Avengers, the Gigantes. They are not like the gods. They are the anti-gods. Where the Olympians are beautiful, proportional, and radiant, the giants are chthonic nightmares. The poet Apollodorus describes them with terrifying precision. They are of unsurpassable size. They are hairy, with long, matted locks drooping from their heads and chins. Their feet are not feet. They are the coiled scales of dragons. When they walk, the earth does not just shake, it screams. They are born with armor already on their skin. They are born with spears in their hands that are the trunks of ancient oaks stripped of their branches. They are the embodiment of brute, mindless force. They are the hurricane, the earthquake, the landslide. Their goal is simple: to pile mountain upon mountain, Pelion upon Ossa, to climb the sky, to storm the gates of Olympus, and to tear the usurper Zeus from his throne. The Olympians look down from their golden balconies. They see the army of monsters gathering. They see rocks the size of islands being hurled into the sky. The stars turn pale. Even Ares, the god of war, feels a flicker of doubt. For there is a prophecy. The fates, the Moirai, who spin the thread of life, have decreed a terrible condition. No giant can be killed by a god alone. The gods are immortal, yes. They wield cosmic power. Zeus has his lightning. Poseidon has his trident. Apollo has his arrows. But against the earth-born giants, their magic is insufficient. They can wound, they can burn, They can stun, but they cannot kill. The giants will always rise again, drawing strength from their mother, the earth. To win this war, the gods need a mortal. They need a human hand to strike the final blow. They need a bridge between the divine and the terrestrial. Who understands this necessity better than Athena? Who else stands at the intersection of the divine and the human? While the other gods panic, Athena acts. She knows exactly who they need. She does not look for a king. She does not look for a philosopher. She looks for a man who has suffered, a man who has wrestled with his own demons, a man who wears the skin of a lion. She descends from Olympus, not to the battlefield, but to the dusty roads of Greece. She finds Herakles, the son of Zeus, yes, but a mortal. A man of muscle and sweat who has spent his life fulfilling impossible labors. Athena appears to him. She does not come with riddles. She comes with a chariot. "Get in," she commands. "The world is ending, and only your bow can save it." Herakles, who has respected the gray-eyed goddess above all others since his youth, obeys. Athena drives the chariot. They ascend. They ride through the clouds, the wheels rattling against the firmament, heading toward the burning plains of Phlegra. Imagine the scene as they arrive. The battle is already raging. The sky is choked with smoke. Lightning bolts are raining down like spears. The roar of the giants is drowning out the thunder. Ares is there, screaming with bloodlust, driving his spear into the chests of enemies, but they keep standing up. Poseidon is crushing them with waves, but they just shake the water from their hair. Athena steps off the chariot. She is the Promachos now, the fighter in the forefront. She is fully armed. The helmet is pulled low. The Aegis is strapped to her chest, the snakes hissing, the head of Medusa radiating a paralyzing terror. But unlike Ares, who is a blur of red fury, Athena is a study in gray, cold precision. She does not scream. She calculates. She sees a giant rushing towards her. His name is Enceladus. Enceladus is one of the mightiest of the brood. He breathes fire. He is tearing up the landscape, throwing hills at the gods. He sees the maiden goddess and thinks she is easy prey. He charges. Athena does not brace herself. She moves with the fluid grace of the dancer she once was by the Libyan lake. She sidesteps his blow. She strikes him with her spear, piercing his shield. Enceladus roars in pain, but he does not die. He turns to run, perhaps to regroup, perhaps to find a better angle. He flees across the land, leaping over the sea, heading toward the island of Sicily. Athena pursues. But she does not run. She alters the geography. She looks down. She sees the landmass of Sicily. She sees the triangular shape of the island, the Trinacria. She does not throw a spear. She stoops down. With a strength that defies physics, a strength that is amplified by the lever of her intellect, she lifts the island. Not a rock, not a hill, the entire island. She lifts it high into the air. The shadow of it falls over the fleeing giant. Enceladus looks up. He sees the landmass blotting out the sun. Athena throws it. It is the ultimate checkmate. She drops Sicily upon him. The impact is cataclysmic. The island crashes down, burying the giant beneath tons of rock and soil. He is not dead. He cannot die by her hand alone. But he is trapped. He is pinned forever in the deep dark of the earth. The myths tell us that Enceladus still lives beneath the island. When he turns over in his sleep, the ground shakes with earthquakes. When he breathes out his rage, the fire shoots up through the throat of Mount Etna. The volcano is the breath of the defeated giant, and the island is the monument to Athena's strategic use of the environment. She does not stop to celebrate. She returns to the main fray, and here she meets a figure that brings a dark echo from her past. She faces a giant named Pallas. Do not confuse him with the friend of her childhood. This is a monster. He has goat-like features, wings of leather, and eyes full of lust and violence. He sees the goddess and taunts her. He reminds her of the name she carries. He mocks her grief. "You call yourself Pallas?" the giant sneers. "I am Pallas. Come and embrace your namesake." He attacks her. It is a brutal, close-quarters fight. There is no strategy here, only the visceral struggle for survival. But Athena is the mistress of the close fight. She deflects his blow. She gets inside his guard. She kills him. But death is not enough for this enemy. This Pallas represents the perversion of her name. He represents the wild, uncontrolled violence that she despises. Athena does something that shocks even the other gods. She strips the skin from his body. While the battle rages around them, she flays the giant Pallas. She takes his tough, goat-like hide, and in a moment of grim improvisation, she modifies her armor. She drapes the skin of her enemy over her shoulders. She adds it to the Aegis. By doing so, she claims the name Pallas a second time. First, in grief for a friend. Second, in conquest over a monster. She integrates the trauma and the victory into her very silhouette. She wears the proof that she cannot be intimidated. But the war is not won yet. The giants are still rising. Athena turns to Herakles. The mortal hero is fighting bravely, shooting his arrows, swinging his club, but he is overwhelmed. "Herakles!" Athena calls. Her voice cuts through the din of battle like a clarion. "Do not shoot at their bodies. Shoot at the work of the gods." She guides him. She becomes the spotter for the sniper. Zeus strikes a giant named Porphyrion with a lightning bolt. The giant falls, stunned, smoke rising from his chest. But he begins to stir. He begins to rise. "Now!" Athena commands. Herakles draws his bow. The arrow is tipped with the venom of the Hydra, another monster defeated by Athena's council. He looses the shaft. The arrow strikes the stunned giant in the eye, or the heart. The mortal poison mixes with the divine injury. The condition of the prophecy is met. God and man have acted in unison. Porphyrion dies. Then Ephialtes. Apollo shoots him in the left eye. Herakles shoots him in the right. Then Alcyoneus. Athena realizes that this giant is immortal as long as he touches the soil of his birthplace. She grabs Herakles by the shoulder. "Drag him," she orders. "Get him out of Phlegra." Herakles tackles the giant. He drags him across the border, away from the magic soil. The moment Alcyoneus crosses the line, his strength fails. Herakles crushes him with his club. One by one, the giants fall. The pile of mountains they built becomes their tomb. The sky clears. The sulfur smoke dissipates. The gods stand victorious. But they are panting. They are bleeding. Even Zeus looks tired. Only Athena stands composed. She wipes the ichor from her spear. She adjusts the new skin upon her Aegis. She looks at Herakles, who is leaning on his club, exhausted, covered in the black blood of monsters. She smiles at him. It is a smile of genuine respect. "Well done, brother," she says. "You have proven that humanity is not just a plaything. You are the sword in our hand." The Gigantomachy was the crucible. It proved that the Olympian order could defend itself against the chaos of the earth. But it proved something else, something vital about Athena. Ares fights because he loves the smell of blood. He enters the battle for the sensation of the kill. He is often wounded, often defeated, because he is blinded by his own rage. Athena fights because she must. She fights to restore order. She uses the landscape, Sicily. She uses the enemy's own strength, Pallas's skin, and she uses resources she does not possess, Herakles. She is the general. She is the architect of victory. The war is over. But the work of the goddess is never done. The swords can be put away, but the minds of men are still dull. They need sharpening. They need to learn how to live in this new, safe world. They need to learn how to be heroes, not just in war, but in the quest for excellence. Athena looks down at the mortal world again. She sees young men dreaming of glory. She sees kings trying to rule just cities. She sees sailors looking at the horizon, afraid of the unknown. She decides to become their mentor. She will not just be the goddess who kills giants. She will be the goddess who breathes courage into the hearts of the terrified. She will stand behind the shoulder of the hero and whisper, "You can do this." We are leaving the battlefield of Phlegra. The volcanoes are cooling. We are entering the age of heroes. We are going to meet a young man named Perseus, who has no father to guide him. We are going to meet a prince named Bellerophon, who wants to ride the wind. And we are going to walk the long, hard road with Herakles, all the way to the gates of the underworld. The armor is impressive, but the wisdom is the true weapon. We explore Athena's role as the mentor of heroes. We will look into the mirror shield, hold the golden bridle, and see how the gray-eyed one shapes the destiny of mankind, one hero at a time. The battle for the cosmos is won. The battle for the human soul begins now. The dust of the Gigantomachy has settled. The earth, once torn apart by the upheaval of mountains and the crashing of islands, has healed. The gods have returned to their high seats, drinking nectar, secure in their victory. But there is one Olympian who does not sit still, one who finds the golden silence of the palaces restless. Athena is the goddess of the city, yes, but cities are made of people, and people are fragile. They are born, they suffer, and they die. They face monsters that are not cosmic giants, but personal terrors, beasts of the swamp, tyrants of the throne, and the demons of their own doubt. Athena looks down at this mortal struggle, and she makes a choice that separates her from almost every other deity. She decides to get involved, not to seduce like Zeus, not to punish like Hera, but to teach, to guide, to stand just behind the shoulder of the striving man and whisper the solution into his ear. In the ancient Greek texts, she is often called Athena Peristates. Athena, who stands by. She is the invisible partner in the greatest endeavors of human history. We enter now the Age of Heroes, an age of sweat, bronze, and impossible quests. And in every shadow of every great legend, if you look closely, you will see the glint of gray eyes. Let us begin with the slayer of the Gorgon, Perseus. Perseus is a young man in a desperate situation. He has no father to protect him. Zeus visited his mother Danae as a shower of gold, leaving her with a demigod son and no husband. The king of Seriphos, Polydectes, wants to force Danae into marriage. To get rid of the protective son, the king demands an impossible wedding gift: the head of Medusa. Medusa, the Gorgon, the only mortal sister of the three monsters. Her gaze turns flesh to stone. No man has ever seen her and lived to tell the tale. Perseus stands on the shore, looking at the gray sea, despairing. He has courage, but courage is not enough against magic. He needs technology. He needs intelligence. And then she appears. Welcome to Hearths of Myths. Tonight, the air is crisp and the mind is sharp. We are turning our gaze upward, toward the high, snowy peaks of Mount Olympus, but not to witness a feast, nor a casual gathering of the divine family. We are going to witness a moment of extreme physical pain and cosmic transformation. We are going to witness the arrival of the most singular, the most strategic, and perhaps the most complex deity in the entire Greek pantheon. Close your eyes. Let the noise of the modern world fade away. Forget the screens, the notifications, the endless stream of fragmented information. Instead, imagine a silence. A profound, heavy silence that has fallen over the palaces of the gods. It is the kind of silence that precedes a catastrophe or a miracle. The wind has stopped blowing through the colonnades. The nectar in the golden cups sits undisturbed. The gods are holding their breath. In the center of this silence sits the king of the gods, Zeus. But he is not the confident, thunderbolt-wielding monarch we often see in statues. He is gripping the arms of his throne until the gold warps under his fingers. He is in agony. A pain, unlike anything a god should feel, is splitting his skull. It is a pounding, a rhythmic hammering that echoes the beating of a heart, but louder, harder, more metallic. Tonight, we begin the saga of the Gray-Eyed One, the goddess of wisdom, the mistress of strategy, the weaver, the city protector, Athena. But to understand the daughter, we must first understand the father, and more importantly, we must understand the mother, a figure often erased, often forgotten, swallowed by the mists of time and the literal belly of the king. Before we can see the flash of bronze armor on the peak of Olympus, we must go back. We must go back to the time when Zeus was young, when his rule was fragile, and when the prophecy of the earth and the sky cast a long, terrifying shadow over his reign. This story begins not with a birth, but with a fear. In the ancient cosmology, as described by the poet Hesiod in his Theogony, power was never given. It was seized. And once seized, it was jealously guarded. The history of the universe was a history of sons overthrowing fathers. Uranos, the sky, was castrated by his son Cronus. Cronus, the time, devoured his own children to prevent them from usurping him, only to be overthrown by his son, Zeus. This was the cycle of succession. It was the brutal, bloody rhythm of the cosmos. Zeus had won the war against the Titans. He had cast his father into the pit of Tartarus. He sat on the highest throne. But deep in his heart, the fear remained. Would it happen to him? Was there a son waiting in the shadows of the future, destined to take his lightning bolt and cast him down? This paranoia is crucial to the story of Athena, because Athena is the solution to this problem. She is the anomaly that breaks the cycle. Zeus's first wife was not Hera, the queen of heaven we know so well. His first wife was Metis. Her name in the ancient Greek tongue means wisdom, but also something more specific. It means cunning intelligence. It means the ability to foresee, to plan, to craft a trap, to find a solution where none seems to exist. Metis was an Oceanid, a daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. She was the one who had helped Zeus in the very beginning. When Zeus needed to trick his father Cronus into vomiting up his swallowed siblings, it was Metis who crafted the emetic potion. Without Metis, there would be no Olympians. She was the mind behind the throne. Hesiod tells us that she knew more than all the gods and mortal men put together. Imagine that. A being whose intellect was not just vast, but absolute. She was the fluid intelligence of water, adaptable and deep. Zeus married her, and for a time there was a union of power and wisdom. It seemed like the perfect balance. But the old powers, Gaia, the earth, and Ouranos, the sky, spoke to Zeus. They whispered a prophecy that turned his blood to ice. They told him that Metis was destined to bear 2 children of extraordinary power. The first would be a daughter, a maiden with gray eyes, who would be equal to her father in strength and wise counsel. That sounded acceptable. A daughter equal to him. He could live with that. But the second child, the prophecy said that after the daughter, Metis would bear a son with an overbearing spirit, a king of gods and men who would be stronger than the thunderbolt, a son who would do to Zeus exactly what Zeus had done to Cronus. The cycle of succession was coming for him. Zeus looked at his pregnant wife, Metis. She was carrying the first child, the daughter, but the seed of the future son lay within her potential. He could not risk it. He could not allow the mother of his destruction to exist. But how do you defeat wisdom? You cannot fight her. She will outthink you. You cannot run from her. She will find you. So Zeus used Metis's own nature against her. He used cunning. The sources vary on the exact details, but the implication in the mythic tradition is a game of shape-shifting. Metis, being a creature of fluid wisdom, could change her form. Perhaps Zeus challenged her. Can you become a lion? Can you become a drop of water? It is a motif we see in folklore across the world. In the moment when she made herself small, when she transformed into something vulnerable, perhaps a fly or a drop of water, Zeus struck. He did not imprison her. He did not exile her. He swallowed her whole. It was a grotesque, primal act of consumption. He took the pregnant Metis and absorbed her into his own body. By doing so, he thought he had solved the problem forever. If she was inside him, she could never bear the son who would overthrow him. But more than that, by swallowing wisdom, he became wisdom. Hesiod writes that he put her in his belly so that she might advise him of good and evil. He integrated her intellect into his own. He became the ultimate sovereign, one who possesses both the brute force of the storm and the strategic foresight of the mind. The crisis was averted, or so he thought. Time passed in the realm of the gods, and time, for the immortals, is a fluid concept. It can be a moment, or it can be an eon. Zeus continued his rule. He married Themis. He married Hera. He fathered the seasons, the fates, the graces. The memory of Metis faded from the minds of the other gods. She was just a story, a whisper from the early days of the reign. But inside the king, something was growing. The biology of a god is not like the biology of a mortal. It is a landscape of ichor and energy. Métis, though swallowed, was not dead. You cannot kill an abstract concept. Wisdom was alive inside him, and the child she was carrying, the daughter who was destined to be his equal, was not dead either. She was growing. But she was not growing in a womb. She had moved. She had ascended. The child found a new gestation chamber. She moved upward, through the divine physiology of the Father, until she found a space vast enough to contain her expanding power. She settled in his head, and this brings us back to the silence on Olympus, to the king gripping his throne. The headache did not start all at once. It began as a pressure, a sense of fullness behind the eyes. Zeus perhaps thought it was the burden of rule, the weight of maintaining order in a chaotic cosmos. But it grew. It became a pulse. Imagine the sensation. This was not a migraine caused by dilated blood vessels. This was the sensation of a separate consciousness, a fully formed deity, moving inside the confines of the skull. And she was not just sitting there. The myths tell us that inside her father's head, Athena was preparing. She was not a helpless infant. She was forging her identity. Some poets suggest that the sounds Zeus heard were the sounds of a smithy, the clinking of a hammer on an anvil, the scraping of metal, the tightening of straps. His daughter was crafting her armor. She was beating out the bronze for her helmet. She was sharpening the tip of her spear. Inside the brain of God, a war was being prepared. The pain became blinding. It is said that Zeus's cries echoed across the earth. The other gods gathered around him, terrified and confused. Apollo, the healer, could do nothing. His herbs and songs were useless against a condition that was internal and divine. Ares, the god of war, watched with a mix of fear and curiosity. Hera sat stiffly, perhaps feeling a flicker of jealousy, or perhaps just dread at what new horror her husband had birthed. The pressure became so intense that Zeus felt his immortality was being tested. He felt that his head would physically burst, shattering the dome of the sky. He needed release. He needed a way out. He called for help. In the most common version of the myth, specifically in Pindar and later representations on black figure pottery, he calls for Hephaistos, the smith god, the master of the forge, the one who understands how to open things, how to shape metal and flesh. Hephaistos arrived, limping, carrying his tools. He looked at his father. He saw the veins pulsing on Zeus's forehead. He saw the eyes rolling back in agony. "Strike me!" Zeus commanded. His voice was a roar of pain. "Open my head! Cut it open!" Hephaistos hesitated. To strike the king of the gods? To bring an axe down on the head of the father? It was treason. It was madness. It could destroy the universe. "Do it!" Zeus screamed. The sound of the thunder rumbling in his throat was drowned out by the scream. Hephaestus gripped his axe. This was the Labris, the double-headed axe of the Minoan age, a tool of sacrifice and hewing. He hefted the weight of the divine bronze. He looked at the spot, right in the center of the forehead, just above the brow ridge. He took a breath. He swung. The axe cleaved the bone. It was a surgical strike of immense violence. The skull of Zeus was breached, and in that split second, the pressure was released. But blood did not flow. Or at least, not only blood. Light flowed. A blinding, clear gray light poured from the wound, illuminating the high peaks of Olympus with a brilliance that rivaled the sun. And then, a figure leaped out. This is the moment described in the Homeric hymn to Athena, a text of such power that it still vibrates with the energy of that ancient event. The poet tells us that she did not crawl out. She did not emerge as a weeping infant. She sprang forth, and she was fully grown. She was wearing a full set of armor. A helmet of gold crested her head. Greaves of bronze protected her shins. In her hand, she held a sharp spear, shaking it towards the sky. And as she leaped from her father's broken head, she let out a shout. The Greeks called it the alalagmos. It is the war cry. It is the sound warriors make when they clash their spears against their shields to terrify the enemy. It is a sound of pure, unadulterated triumph and aggression. "Alala!" The cry was so piercing, so powerful, that the entire cosmos reacted in shock. The Homeric hymn describes the scene with apocalyptic detail. Great Olympus shook terribly beneath the weight of the gray-eyed goddess. The mountain itself trembled. The tectonic plates of the divine realm shifted under the impact of her landing. The earth round about cried out fearfully. The ground groaned. The forests shook their leaves. The animals went silent. The deep main was moved and stirred with rapid waves. The sea, the domain of Poseidon, boiled. The dark waves rose up in foam, disturbed by the shock wave of her birth. The waters halted in their flow. But the most terrifying reaction came from the sky. The son of Hyperion halted his swift-footed horses a long while. Helios, the sun god, who drives the chariot of the sun across the sky every day without fail, stopped. He pulled on the reins. He froze the sun in the heavens. He gazed down in awe at this new divinity. For a moment, time itself stood still. The day hung suspended, bathing the world in a long, unnatural noon. The golden snow fell. Pindar, the lyric poet, adds this beautiful, strange detail. At the moment of her birth, it snowed gold upon the island of Rhodes. It was a baptism of wealth and light. And there she stood, Athena. She looked at her father. Zeus, the wound in his head already healing by the grace of his immortality, looked at his daughter. He saw the gray eyes, the eyes of Metis. He saw the intelligence, the sharpness, the glaucopus, the flashing, bright gaze that misses nothing. But he also saw the armor. He saw the spear. He saw a warrior who was ready to defend the order of Olympus, not destroy it. The prophecy of Gaia had been half fulfilled. A daughter equal to her father had been born. But because she was born from him alone, or so it seemed, Because she had no mother to align her with the older generation of Titans, she was his. She was entirely, devotedly his. There was no son. The dangerous second child, the usurper, had not been born. The cycle was broken. Athena lowered her spear. She took off her helmet, revealing her hair. The earthquake stopped. The waves of the sea settled. Helios snapped his reins, and the sun began to move across the sky once more. Zeus smiled. It is said that he delighted in her, in this daughter who was the external manifestation of his own internal wisdom. She was the Logos made flesh. She was the thought become action. This birth story is the foundation of everything Athena represents. It explains her paradoxes. She is a woman, but she is born of a man. She has no mother, in the social sense, which aligns her with the patriarchy of Zeus, making her his greatest defender. In the play Eumenides by Aeschylus, centuries later, Athena herself will say, "There is no mother who gave me birth. And in all things, save marriage, I praise the male with all my heart." This originates here, on the bloodied stones of Olympus, with the axe of Hephaestus. She is a goddess of war, born in armor. But she is born from the head, not the womb or the loins. Her war is not the blood frenzy of Ares. It is the war of the mind. It is strategy. It is discipline. It is the general who surveys the battlefield and finds the weakness in the enemy's line. She is the headache that became a solution. She is the goddess of wisdom, inheriting the domain of her swallowed mother, Meta. But while Metis was the cunning of the deep sea, the shapeshifter, Athena is the cunning of the bright sky. She is the clarity of the air on a mountain peak. As the other gods looked at her, they knew that the hierarchy had changed. Hera, looking at this magnificent, golden-armored maiden who had bypassed the process of birth entirely, must have felt a cold seed of rivalry. Poseidon, seeing the waves bow to her, must have sensed a challenger for the dominion of the earth. Ares, seeing her spear, must have recognized that his brute strength was no longer the only way to fight. Athena took her place at the right hand of Zeus. She was the Parthenos, the virgin. She was the Promachos, the champion. But the young goddess had much to learn. She had the wisdom of the ages encoded in her blood, but she had to experience the world. She needed to understand the difference between the cold perfection of Olympus and the messy, tragic reality of the earth. She needed to learn the price of pride, and soon she would learn that even a goddess of wisdom can make a mistake that would cost a life and give her a name. The birth was violent, a breaking of the bone. But the childhood of Athena would be marked by a different kind of tragedy, a tragedy of water, friendship, and a spear thrown in error. We must leave the high peaks of Olympus now. The celebration of the birth is over. The nectar has been poured. The golden snow has melted. We must descend, down from the ether, down to the dust of the earth. We are going to the shores of a lake in Libya, to the river Triton. There, the young goddess will meet a girl named Pallas, and there, she will learn that possessing the power of the storm is one thing, but controlling it is another. The headache is gone, but the heartache is just beginning. We walk beside the riverbanks and witness the friendship that defined the goddess, and the death that created the Aegis. The storm has passed. but the ripples on the water remain. The fire has burned down a little, but the embers are glowing brighter, casting long, dancing shadows against the walls. It is fitting, for the story we are about to enter is one of shadows. It is a story of how the brightest light often casts the deepest darkness. We have witnessed the birth of the goddess, the golden, shouting, spear-shaking miracle on the peak of Olympus. We have seen the headache of Zeus resolve into a being of pure intellect and power. But a god is not shaped solely by their birth. Even the immortals are shaped by their childhoods, by the places they walk, and the beings they love. Athena was born an adult in form, fully armored, but in experience, she was new. She was a tabula rasa, a blank slate of divine potential, and to write upon that slate, she had to leave the high, sterile air of Olympus. She had to touch the earth. This brings us to one of the most poignant and often overlooked chapters in Greek mythology. We must travel south, far from the snowy ridges of Greece, across the wine-dark sea, to the ancient, mysterious lands of Libya, to the banks of a great body of water known as Lake Tritonis. Why here? Why would the favorite daughter of Zeus spend her formative years in the dust and heat of North Africa? The myths, specifically those recounted by the historian Herodotus and the mythographer Apollodorus, tell us that Zeus entrusted his wondrous daughter to a foster father. This was Triton, not the merman with the conch shell we see in later Renaissance fountains, but an ancient, elemental god of the water, a river god who presided over the vast lake Tritonis. Perhaps Zeus wanted to protect her from the jealousy of Hera, whose rage at Athena's motherless birth was still simmering. Perhaps he wanted her to learn the fluidity of water to balance the rigidity of her strategic mind. So, the gray-eyed one grew up by the reeds and the clay. But she was not alone. Triton had a daughter of his own, a nymph, or perhaps a mortal girl of extraordinary spirit, named Pallas. Imagine the scene. Two maidens living on the edge of the known world. One is the daughter of the king of the universe, carrying the blood of the sky and the wisdom of the deep earth. The other is the daughter of the river, swift and strong. They were the same age. They were mirrors of each other. In the solitude of the Libyan wild, a profound bond formed between them. It was a friendship defined not by dolls or weaving, though Athena would later master the loom, but by the spear and the shield. They were warrior sisters. They were Amazonian before the Amazons were a legend. They spent their days under the hot sun, practicing the arts of war. This was not war for the sake of killing. This was arete, excellence. It was the pursuit of physical perfection. They learned how to hold the shield so that it deflected the blow without shattering the arm. They learned the footwork of the duelist, the dance of death that requires perfect balance. They ran races against the wind. They wrestled in the red dust until their skin was coated in the earth. Athena loved Pallas. It is a rare thing to see a god love an equal, or at least someone they treat as an equal. On Olympus, everyone is scheming. Everyone is looking at the hierarchy. But here, by the lake, there was just the joy of movement, the clash of wood on wood, the laughter of two young warriors pushing each other to be better. Pallas was the only being who could keep up with Athena. She was the sharp stone against which Athena sharpened her own divine steel. And this brings us to the man who suffered the longest delay, the man who is the true counterpart to Athena's soul. Odysseus. The relationship between Athena and Odysseus is unique in mythology. She does not love him erotically. She loves him intellectually. She sees herself in him. He is polytropos, the man of many turns. He is a liar, a strategist, a survivor, a craftsman, a speaker. He is Athena, stripped of immortality and cast into a world of pain. The Odyssey is essentially a love story between a goddess and a human mind. For 10 years, while Poseidon hunts him, Athena watches over him. She cannot intervene directly against her uncle's wrath, but she works in the margins. She pleads his case to Zeus. She visits his son, Telemachus. This is a crucial part of her role as mentor. She takes the form of an old family friend, mentor, and sometimes mentes. She finds Telemachus sitting among the suitors who are eating his father's substance. The boy is depressed, passive, waiting for a savior. Athena does not save him. She shames him into action. "You are not a child anymore," she tells him. "I will find you a ship. Go, find news of your father." She initiates him into manhood. She plans the journey. She sits in the stern of the ship. She is the architect of the next generation. But the most beautiful moment comes when Odysseus finally reaches Ithaca. He has been gone for 20 years. He is sleeping on the sand. The Phaeacians have left him there. He wakes up. He does not recognize his own home. Athena has cast a mist over the land to disorient him, to buy time for a plan. Odysseus thinks he has been tricked again. He is cursing his luck. A young shepherd boy approaches him. It is Athena in disguise. She is beautiful, delicate. Odysseus asks where he is. She tells him it is Ithaca. Odysseus, being Odysseus, does not cry with joy. He lies. He spins a complex, completely fabricated backstory about being a fugitive from Crete. He tests the stranger. Athena smiles. She transforms. She grows tall, womanly, radiant. She reaches out and strokes his hand. "One would have to be a master of guile to surpass you in trickery," she says, her voice full of amusement and affection. "Even a god would find it hard. You wretch, you schemer, you are never tired of lies. Even in your own land, you cannot stop telling stories." And then she says the words that define their bond. "But let us not talk of this. We are both masters of craft. You are the best of all mortals in counsel and speech, and I am famous among all the gods for my wisdom and my schemes. We are both masters." She places him on her level. They sit together under an olive tree, her tree, and they plot. They do not summon an army. They do not call down lightning. They plan a massacre. She transforms him into a beggar. She withers his skin, dims his eyes, clothes him in rags. She teaches him the hardest lesson for a hero: humility. He must endure the insults of the suitors in his own house. He must be mocked and beaten, and he must not fight back. Not until the trap is sprung. She goes to Sparta to fetch Telemachus. She brings the father and son together. She orchestrates the reunion. And finally, the day of the bow arrives. The suitors are gathered in the great hall. They cannot string the great bow of Odysseus. The beggar asks for a try. He strings it. He shoots the arrow through the axes. The rags fall away. Odysseus stands revealed. The battle begins. It is chaotic. Spears are flying. The suitors outnumber the heroes 50-1. Athena is there. At first, she watches from the rafters, taking the form of a swallow. She wants to see them fight. She wants to see them earn it. But when the tide threatens to turn, when the sheer number of enemies threatens to overwhelm the king, she acts. She raises the Aegis. From the roof of the hall, the terrible shield flashes. The Gorgon's head screams. The snakes hiss. The suitors see it. And their minds were scared within them, and they fled down the hall like a herd of cattle stung by the gadfly. Panic. The divine terror. Odysseus and Telemachus wander through the hall like wolves, slaughtering the panicked prey. It is a cleansing, a restoration of order. When the dust settles, the house is silent. The floor is slick with blood. But the king is on his throne. The queen, Penelope, is safe. Athena does not stay for the celebration. Her work is done. She has brought the hero home. She has restored the oikos, the household. She has proven that wisdom, patience, and a well-told lie are stronger than brute force. But the story of Athena does not end with war. It cannot end with blood. She is the goddess of civilization. And civilization depends on two things: justice and industry. We have seen her fight. Now we must see her judge, and we must see her weave. But there is a danger in weaving. There is a danger in being the best. There is a mortal woman in Lydia named Arachne. She claims she can weave better than the goddess. She claims she needs no gods. And there is a prince named Orestes, pursued by the Furies for the crime of killing his mother. He runs to Athens. He clings to the statue of Athena. He demands a trial. The final chapter of our journey awaits. We will climb the hill of the Areopagus. We will witness the invention of the jury trial. And we will see the terrible price of artistic pride. The spear is laid down. The loom is set up. The gavel is raised. We explore the weaver, the verdict, and the cult. We will see how Athena shaped the very concept of justice that we use today, and how her legacy echoes in the marble ruins of the Parthenon. The war is over. The judgment begins. The fire is dying down. The bright, leaping flames of the earlier hours have settled into a bed of deep, glowing coals. The heat is less intense, but it is more constant. It radiates a steady, penetrating warmth that reaches into the bones. This is the state of Athena in the final chapter of her mythology. She is no longer the flashing lightning bolt that burst from Zeus's head. She is no longer the storm that ravaged the plains of Troy. She has become something more permanent, more structural. She has become the bedrock of civilization itself. We have seen her wield the spear. Now, we must see her wield the shuttle and the gavel. For the ancient Greeks, civilization was defined by two great pillars: techne, craft/art, and dike, justice. And Athena was the mistress of both. But in the world of the gods, mastery always invites challenge, and challenge always invites tragedy. Let us travel first to the region of Lydia, to a small town famous for its purple dye. Here lives a girl named Arachne. Arachne was not a princess. She was not a demigoddess. She was a simple girl, the daughter of a dyer of wool. But she possessed a gift that was so extraordinary that nymphs would leave their streams and vineyards just to watch her work. She was a weaver. When Arachne sat at her loom, her hands moved with a grace that seemed divine. She could spin thread so fine it looked like clouds. She could weave tapestries so realistic that birds would try to peck at the fruit depicted in them. But Arachne had a fatal flaw. It was not her skill, it was her pride. She refused to acknowledge the source of her talent. When people praised her, saying, "Surely you were taught by Pallas Athena herself," Arachne would scoff. "I taught myself," she would declare, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Let the goddess come. Let her compete with me. If she wins, I will pay any penalty." This is hubris. It is the one sin the Greek gods cannot forgive. It is the forgetting of one's place in the cosmic hierarchy. Athena heard the boast. She did not strike with lightning. She gave the girl a chance. The goddess descended to Lydia. She took the form of an old woman with gray hair and a crooked staff. She hobbled into Arachne's workshop. "Listen to old age," the disguised goddess whispered. "Seek fame among mortals for your wool, but yield to the goddess. Ask forgiveness for your rash words. She is merciful. She will forgive you." It was a lifeline, a chance to repent. Arachne looked at the old woman with contempt. "You are senile," she snapped. "Keep your advice for your daughters. I do not need it. Why does the goddess not come herself? Is she afraid?" The disguise fell away. Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, describes the transformation. The old woman vanished. In her place stood the radiant, terrible form of Pallas Athena. The nymphs bowed. The Lydian women fell to their knees. Only Arachne remained standing. She blushed, then turned pale, but she did not back down. "I am ready," she said. The looms were set up. 2 webs, 2 weavers. The contest began. The sound of the contest was not the clash of swords, but the rhythmic thwack, thwack of the shuttle and the comb. The air smelled of lanolin and Tyrian purple dye. Athena wove a tapestry of order. In the center, she depicted the 12 Olympians in all their majesty, sitting on high thrones. She depicted her own victory over Poseidon for the city of Athens, the olive tree shining with silver leaves. And in the 4 corners, she wove warning scenes, mortals who had challenged gods and were punished. It was a masterpiece of didactic art. It was beautiful, but it was a sermon. Arachne wove a tapestry of chaos. She did not weave the glory of the gods. She wove their crimes. She wove the celestials' crimes, Celestia Crimina. She showed Zeus disguised as a bull abducting Europa. She showed him as a swan seducing Leda. She showed Poseidon as a ram. She depicted the gods as liars, rapists, and tricksters who abused their power. It was an act of supreme rebellion, but the terrifying thing, the thing that Ovid emphasizes, is that the work was flawless. Not Pallas, nor envy itself, could find a flaw in the work. The mortal girl had woven a perfect depiction of divine hypocrisy. Athena looked at the web. She saw the skill. She saw the truth of the images. And she saw the insult. The anger of the goddess broke. This was not the cool, strategic anger of the general. This was the jealousy of the artist and the wrath of the divine. She took her shuttle, made of heavy boxwood, and she struck the web. She tore the beautiful, blasphemous tapestry to shreds. Then she struck Arachne on the forehead 3 times. Arachne, shattered by the physical blow and the sudden realization of her doom, could not bear it. She took a rope and tried to hang herself. Athena watched her hanging there, and for a moment, a strange mixture of pity and cruelty entered the goddess's heart. "Live, then," Athena commanded. "But hang forever, wicked girl. Let this punishment remain for all your race." She sprinkled Arachne with the juices of Hecate's herbs. Arachne's hair fell out. Her nose and ears vanished. Her head shrank. Her fingers grew long and thin, attaching to her side. Her belly grew round. She was no longer a woman. She was a spider. And immediately she began to spin. It is a terrifying ending, but it captures the essence of Athena's domain. Craft is sacred. If you use it to mock the order of the world, you become a monster. But even as a monster, Arachne continues to weave. Athena did not take away the gift. She took away the humanity. We leave the dark corner of the workshop now. We must travel to a place of light and stone, to Athens. The weaving contest showed Athena as the defender of divine honor. Now, we must see her as the inventor of human justice. The saga of the house of Atreus is the bloodiest in Greek myth. Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter. His wife, Clytemnestra, murders him in the bath. Their son, Orestes, murders his mother to avenge his father. Orestes has committed the ultimate taboo, matricide. The Furies, Erichthonius, ancient chthonic goddesses of vengeance, rise from the earth. They chase Orestes across the world. They are the old law, blood for blood. They do not care about context. They do not care that Apollo told him to do it. They only know that a son killed a mother, and he must be torn apart. Orestes flees to Athens. He collapses at the feet of Athena's statue. The Furies surround the temple, smelling blood. Athena appears. She looks at the scene. On one side, the ancient forces of retribution, the Furies. On the other, a man who acted under orders but committed a terrible crime. A simple god would just pick a side. Athena invents a third option. "This matter is too big for any mortal to judge," she says, "and even I cannot decide a case of blood guilt alone. I will appoint judges." She marches them to the Areopagus, the hill of Ares, a rocky outcrop next to the Acropolis. She gathers 12 of the finest citizens of Athens. She swears them in. She creates the first jury. This is the turning point of Western civilization in mythology. It is the move from vendetta, private revenge, to litigation, public trial. The trial begins. Apollo argues for the defense. The Furies argue for the prosecution. The arguments are heated. The jury votes. They cast their stones into the urns. Athena counts the votes. 6 for conviction. 6 for acquittal. A tie. In the old world, a tie would mean chaos. It would mean the Furies take their prize. But Athena steps forward. She holds a white stone, the Athena's stone, Siphos. "It is my duty to give the final judgment," she declares. "I vote for Orestes." Why? She gives a theological reason. I was not born of a mother, so I prioritize the father. But the legal principle is deeper. She establishes the principle of in dubio pro reo, in doubt, favor the defendant. Mercy is superior to severity. Orestes is free. The Furies are apoplectic. They threaten to poison the soil of Athens. They threaten to make women barren. Athena does not fight them with a spear. She fights them with persuasion, patho. She offers them a home. She offers them a sanctuary in a cave beneath the hill. She offers them honor. She tells them that they will no longer be the Furies, the angry ones, but the Eumenides, the kindly ones. They will be the guardians of justice, not the agents of blind revenge. She integrates the dark, ancient powers into the new democratic order. She civilizes the monsters. This is Athena's greatest victory. Not the killing of a giant, but the transformation of vengeance into justice. And this victory leads us, finally, to the physical manifestation of her glory, the Parthenon. Imagine standing in Athens in the 5th century BC. You walk up the Panathenaic Way. You pass the marketplace, where Socrates is asking questions that Athena would surely appreciate. You climb the steep ramp of the Acropolis. You pass through the Propylaea, the monumental gates, and there it is, the Temple of the Virgin. It is built of pentelic marble, white with a hint of gold in the sun. It is the perfect embodiment of mathematical harmony. The columns lean slightly inward to correct the optical illusion of the eye. It is techne in stone. You walk inside. The air is cool and smells of incense. And there, towering 40 feet high, is the Athena Parthenos, the statue made by Phidias. It is chryselephantine, made of ivory and gold plates over a wooden core. Her skin is white ivory. Her armor is beaten gold. On her head is a helmet with a sphinx and griffins. In her right hand, she holds a life-size statue of Nike, Victory. In her left hand, she rests on her shield. Look closely at the shield. On the outside, the battle of the Amazons. On the inside, the battle of the giants. On her sandals, the battle of the centaurs. Every inch of her image tells the story of order triumphing over chaos. Beside her shield curls a massive golden serpent. This is Erichthonius, her foster son, the spirit of the city. She protects him, and he protects her. The people of Athens would stand before this statue and feel a sense of awe that we can barely imagine. She was not just a myth. She was the state. She was the law. She was the mind. Every 4 years, during the Great Panathenaea, the women of the city would bring a new robe, the peplos, woven with saffron and purple threads, to drape over the ancient olive wood statue, the Zoanon, in the smaller temple next door, the Erechtheion. They were doing what she taught them. They were weaving. They were honoring the craft. The fires of the altars would burn. The meat would be shared among the citizens. For a moment, the mortal and the divine were one. But stone crumbles. Gold is stolen. The great statue of Phidias vanished centuries ago, likely melted down for coin by tyrants or taken to Constantinople to perish in a fire. The Parthenon was blown up by gunpowder in 1687. The roof is gone. Yet Athena remains. She remains because she is not made of matter. She is made of mind. As long as there is a university where students study philosophy, she is there. As long as there is a court of law where a jury deliberates, she is there. As long as a scientist looks into a microscope to understand the hidden structure of a virus, she is there. As long as a general looks at a map to end a war quickly, she is there. She is the gray light of dawn that clarifies the world after a night of confusion. She is the Glaucopus, the owl-eyed, the one who sees. We have walked the full path now, from the headache of Zeus to the shores of Libya, from the contest of the olive to the blood of the giants, from the shield of Perseus to the loom of Arachne, from the fury of the storm to the quiet of the courtroom. The fire in our hearth has burned down to ash. The night is deep. The owl is calling from the tree outside. It is time to rest. Let the wisdom of the goddess settle in your mind. Let her courage strengthen your heart. And may you always find the strategic path through the labyrinths of your own life. Thank you for listening to Hearths of Myths. If you found clarity in this journey, and if you wish to walk the paths of the ancients with me again, please leave a like and subscribe. The gods have many more stories to tell, and the fire will always be waiting. Sleep well, and may the Aegis protect your dreams.